This is Chariot.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may find yourself. My name is Ebony Najari, and welcome to Chariot TV Action Time segment. It's an exciting day to be here as we're going to be continuing with our conversation about technology and church ministry. And today, we're going to be continuing with a special segment where we talk about data privacy. And as you already know, we do have our guest with us, Tag, who has been a great expert educating us from the usage of technology and evangelism, and also educating us the importance of using the management software in our congregations. So today I'm going to bring up Tag onto the podium, and we're going to have a conversation about data privacy as well, relating to church ministry. So why don't you just join me and welcome in Tag on the podium? Hi, Tag.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
I'm doing very fine. How about you?
I'm doing very well. It's good to see you again, and I
Yes.
hope the weekend has been like very fun for you, and whatever you were wishing to accomplish, you've been able to accomplish this weekend.
Oh, yes. So far, the weekend is going. I mean, we started a new week, so the weekend has already ended. That yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Anyway, so today, as you are aware, we're going to be having a conversation about technology and data privacy. And I just wanted us to kind of like first off start off setting up the stage as to what exactly is data privacy. I think that would help kind of like steer the conversation as to like the definition, right? Because if people don't know what it means, they don't know how to like how this like impacts their daily lives. So first, help us define what exactly data privacy is.
Okay, so I just want to thank all our viewers for making time with us today as we continue our technology and just ministry series. Let me just start it this way that, and this is my personal belief, all right,
Hmm.
that the church is one of the places where people do share a lot of their personal information with the congregation they are part of. Just like how when someone is employed in a particular company, he or she shares their information with that industry he's working with. It is the same thing with the church.
Hmm.
But when it comes to the church, there are more or personal or sensitive information that are shared. For example, when someone shares a prayer request, that is more personalized. Maybe he or she is requesting that the he gets an employment or whatever. I mean, I would not like to cite some more
Yeah.
personal examples
Yeah.
as it may be some kind of data breaches.
Hmm.
So with that said, all right, those things that I shared, maybe prayer requests, some family struggle that a person is going through, it could be financial instability or concerns. Those could be probably during some Bible class or maybe prayer section that those are voiced out. But due to the technological era that we find ourselves in, all right, maybe you want to do that through, say, WhatsApp or maybe a management system or through an SMS or and all those things.
Hmm.
But the concern is, are those things going to be safe? All right. So sharing through towards I mean through those platforms, the consent for any person who is much into the privacy, and I think very soon I'm going to define what data privacy is. And
Hmm.
when I say data privacy or information privacy, they all mean the same thing throughout this conversation. So say for example someone gives out their information, say their phone number, their full name, their family lineage. Probably the person includes their parents, their kids, and all that. And this is kind of what you call their genealogy. All right,
Hmm.
they are giving kind of a family tree that they belong to. All right.
Hmm.
Now, they are concerned if, say, I give the church my address where I live, is the church going to keep that safe? That how I'll not be tracked for my security and all those things like that's one of the thing that the person should be concerned about. And now to define what data privacy or information privacy is all about is this, that whoever we are giving the information to, all right, it is the person's responsibility, all right, that's the responsibility to handle people's information. And when we are handling those information, we need to take care of them. And if you have a purpose for we to keep those information, and we should have the consent of those people that, okay, I trust my data into your hands, take care of it and all that. And this is not just that we are being wise, all right, but when it comes to the Bible aspect, all right, it's we being faithful with the data that the people are giving unto us. So in simple terms, if you ask me to define what data privacy is all about, is responsibly handling the data or personal data that people are committing onto our hands. We do that based on their consent, and we do that with a purpose in mind. So I think that's what I can say about data privacy for now.
Awesome. So thank you for that explanation and also helping set the stage with the definition. And I think what you've basically said here is making sure that the information that we gather, we've received consent from the individuals, and also the person that is going to be saving or being the gatekeeper of this data is put it in a secured place. I think that's a summary of what you're trying to say.
Exactly. And I wish to add up this, all right. Since we are talking about data over here, and this kind of just in passing, that if you can leave the offering bowl unattended to, all right, all right, then there's a need for us to also have that in mind, that the data that we are taking from people, we need to put measures in place to secure them so that unauthorized people do not get access to them. As we keep the money or the offering of the church in banks, we also need to put measures in place where these are kept safe and there's no data breach and all that.
Awesome. And I appreciate this, broad explanation that you've given. And I think it now sets the stage for me to ask you some follow-up questions and kind of connect the dots to what we've discussed in the past and why we're here today with this whole conversation about data breach. So I know one of the episodes that we recorded, it was strictly about digital evangelism, right? And we had conversations about making sure that whatever we post, we are mindful of whatever we post. We are responsible for whatever we post on social media.
Exactly.
And that's what kind of led to this point of this segment. So I want to know, what is the first privacy policy that every church should establish for their digital tools that they have, keeping in mind that they will be doing digital evangelism, having records and management systems and stuff like that. What is the first policy that every church should establish for their digital tools?
Okay, so I think this question seems to have been answered in part of the introduction that I made, but I just want to reiterate some of the things that I stated earlier. You see, we should see the church as an organization. That is how it is, all right? That is a fact. And because of the era that we find ourselves in, and at the beginning of this whole series, I did mention that we understanding the time that we find ourselves in, there's a need for the church or the congregation to have an established member data use and consent policy. Let me just break that down a little bit. Now, the congregation needs to have some standard or some rule laid down for all members. Say, for example, when someone gets baptized, that's the stage at which we are going to have the person's data added to the church, all right?
Can I interject and say maybe even it starts with visitation, because when they come brand new, they visit, so you get all the data. So let's start with that point. Let's start the story with that.
Okay, all right. Let's begin from that. So let's say when someone visits the church, you need to let the person know that okay, the information that we are taking from you, say we take your name, we take your phone number, we take your email. You need to let the person be aware that okay, we are taking this for the purpose of following up with you. All right. Let the person understand that. So it doesn't seem like okay, you are taking it probably later on used for marketing things and all that. All right. So you let the person be aware of that. If there's a need for the person to read through your user member data, right? Let the person read that and understand. And bringing back to, let's say someone gets baptized, all right? That's where you're going to take a lot of details about the person. Okay, maybe you need to know where the person lives, where the person, what are the family lineage of the person, and all those things. So the person needs to understand that we are taking this information because of this and all that. Read through the policy that are available. Let the person explicitly give consent that okay, I've allowed you to proceed to keeping my data and all that. Let that thing be there. It should not be by default that okay, when we are putting into the system, this is what is in there. Let the person like willingly give out this. And to put all things together, all that I'm saying is that the first thing that any congregation that is concerned about the data of the member, they need to have measures in place where they need to have a member data use, how they handle those data, what are the information that they take, who gets access to those data. All right, that's one aspect also. So the data that we are taking, who are the people responsible for keeping it? All right, and what do we use it for? And then there should also be a consent policy where the user or the member need to explicitly state that okay, I'm allowing you to keep this data and all that. Yeah.
Yep. So I think you brought up something that I think needs to be addressed, and it comes to the point of who is responsible in protecting the data. All right.
Okay.
So most of the time, what I've noticed in most congregation is we are all quick to like shift blame. There's the responsibility of edification. There's the responsibility of evangelism, and it does not really lead to like true collaboration with these like committees that we have in our organizations, right? So, from your point of view, who in church leadership should be responsible for data protection decisions?
Okay, so my own question will go back to Acts chapter 20, verse 28. All right. It is the responsibility of the eldership or the leadership of the church to keep the data. But there is a thing. It is obvious that they may not be that tech savvy, all right, to be able to do that. And there is this brother in the church that everybody believes he can handle that. He's that tech savvy and all that. Why don't we like ask the person to come and help? So you call in for that person. The person need to, at the end of the day, report to the elder that is in charge of that. So at the end of the day, it still goes back to the eldership to handle the data, but maybe they don't have the tech savvy to be able to handle that. So they need to delegate the responsibility to someone else that is well versed in that area to help the church with that regard. And you see, there is a thing. The fact that the person is delegated to do that does not mean that's a final, all right? The person should, at the end of the day, be giving report to the elder in charge. So at the end of the day, when there's any data breach, we can easily reconcile with who did what and those things. So the short answer is the eldership is responsible for the congregation data.
Awesome. So I appreciate you establishing that on the higher level, right? But let's be real right here. Most of the congregations don't have elders. When you come to Ghanaian churches, most of them don't have elders, right? And the scenario here is also maybe you are in a college or you're in like a uni campus. I think that's what you guys said. And you guys are trying to like implement this whole technology thing in your congregation. How do you go about that?
Okay, so let's just take, for example, KUST, for example, Ken Church, all right? We have a preacher, so he is seen as the, okay, in terms of leadership, he has the upper hand, okay? So when it comes to data, there's a need for them to go consult. And you see, as I said, we need to be plain to members as in what we are using the data for. Let's take a situation where there is no preacher for the congregation, they are all students. Okay. At the end of the day, there's a bit of leadership. Maybe a group of brothers has been selected to lead the church and all that. Yes, in one way or the other, if let's say all those people who were selected, they do not have the know-how. I want to believe that in that particular congregation, there's someone who knows something that he can offer, even if it's the person is not in the leadership or whatever. The person should be given that opportunity to handle the data of the church. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if there's no eldership or whatever, but whoever is selected to lead the church, let's assume that is the leadership. All right, they are responsible for the data of the congregation, and that this is my personal opinion. And I believe when we understand it that way, that whoever we are is leading us has the ability to keep our data, then everything becomes simple. That when there's a need for us to keep or know who is, let's say when there's a data breach, we can easily go to whoever is responsible and there's so at the end of the day, still it goes back to the leadership of a particular congregation to keep the data of the people. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that explanation. So my follow-up to you is, I know you've already quoted Acts 2, right? As like how to responsibly like manage the data of like the members of the congregation. Is there any other scripture that you have that helps us to address the responsibility of protecting member information?
Okay, so let me just try to see this. Okay, maybe we can try reading from the book of Proverbs. And let me read this. I'll be reading from the New King James Version. So we are reading from Proverbs chapter 11, verse 13. And maybe this would help us better understand how we need to keep the information of the members. So I'm reading from Proverbs chapter 11, verse 13.
Okay.
Reading from the NKJV. And this is what it says. The verse 13. A talebearer reveals secrets, but he who is of faithful spirit conceals a matter. Now, it may not be very clear as in what this is trying to say, but this...
Let me read mine. I think it may help. Mine says, a gossip goes around revealing a secret, but a trustworthy person keeps a confidence. I think that may help.
All right. Thank you so much for that version. So this is the entire idea, all right? If, say, for example, I submit a prayer request through a system, all right? I expect whoever is in charge of it not to ever mention it in, say, a sermon, either casually or whatever, because that's my secrecy.
Yep.
I want only you to be aware of that. Maybe I request money from the church that I'm hard up, so the church should assist me. I do not expect the church to come and make an announcement about that. So if I needed the church to make an announcement about that, I mean, to the pulpit and announce it, but I cannot do that. So you need to, respect the privacy of the person. So I think this could be a guide for us, like that. If whatever the person reveals to you, you try to conceal it, you keep it secret because it's something dear to the person. Maybe when the person hears it out there, the person will be offended, and probably, who knows, these people are not, and before realize the brother, the sister is out of the church, and that will not help. So this should serve as a guide. Let me also add up to this that maybe it was not mentioned during the Bible class or casually through a sermon, right? But you heard, you are just passing by, and you, if it's dropped, that whatever you send through the system or you discuss with the preacher or an elder, that's what they are discussing somewhere else. Like, how will you feel? You don't even need to hear the entire story, just a portion of it. You can make inference that, okay, this is what they are talking about and all. So this could serve as a guide for us that a talebearer reveals secrets, but he who is of faithful spirit conceals a matter. So I think this could serve as a guide for us. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And thank you for establishing that part, right? But there's another coin to the story where nowadays people on like the internet are impersonating other people, right? So in your case where you've kind of like presented that someone presents their request to the church, and then due to data breach, the person that is impersonating the individual has stolen the data, and now the person's secret problem is out there. How do we manage those issues? Because sometimes, look, as you already said, there are going to be appointed team of people that are going to be like, managing everything, but the individual that has been, his data has been stolen, they don't know that the data has been stolen. So how do you manage that part?
Okay, so I think the question is geared towards impersonation, right? Yeah, Evan, is that what?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
impersonating someone. Yep.
Okay, so this is what I want to propose, all right? The members would need to know the channel through which the church is communicating with them. Say, for example, when the church is using an SMS service, all right, and all members should be made aware of the kind of sender name that they are using. So if there's any other way that they are receiving a message, they should be alerted that this is not from the church. This is someone impersonating the congregation. So if the members are made aware of the channel that the information will be sent, that is one thing. When it comes to the email, to the same thing, there should be a standard email that the church could be using for any formal notices or whatever. So what happens when there's a breach of data? Let's say, for example, your Facebook account has been hacked and someone is impersonating you, all right, saying that, okay, and normally that's what they need money. So they be asking for money from people that they know of, all right, because they know if, let's say, you ask, maybe your Facebook account is hacked and you message you that, okay, you need money, maybe because of that rapport that we have, or let's say Ben, maybe it's hard up or something like easily the person will give it. So members need to be educated on this kind of thing, this possibility that, okay, this could happen. And you see, when it comes to this social media, like, it is possible someone can replicate, say, a charity TV channel, all right?
Oh yeah.
That is possible, and be propagating falsehood in there. So we just need to be aware of those things. When you come across it, educate the audience about it, that, okay, this is not us, this is the only channel that we have, and let them be aware. Otherwise, the try that they had from the beginning may be lost when someone tried to impersonate you along the way. So yes, education is one key thing that the members need to be
Awesome. And I think you made a point, and that draws my mind to a question that I'd like to ask. So you made a point about notifications, right? And from my congregation, I know we utilize the traditional method of having a notice board and also the WhatsApp medium. And I think that might be true for majority of congregations as well.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know, like, how should churches like handle digital access to give records differently compared to like paper? Because if back to the story, if we're talking about someone impersonating, and a real example of it is this: like my church WhatsApp group was hacked. Someone reached out to me like, "Hey, there's someone calling me to come to this prayer line, and I know we don't have prayer lines. The only prayer thing that we do is on Fridays virtually. So why is this person calling me to like, you know, get on this prayer line?" And per what she described to me, she's like the person's accent comes off like as a Nigerian, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's given, but it's given. So like, how do we? I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Like, how do we like manage all of those stuff, keeping in mind that yes, we are trying our best to protect people's information, um, but at the same time, too, the interesting characters are still out there. How do we like manage that issue that we have?
Okay, so permit me to use this example, right,
Mm-hmm.
about my chess system that we discussed the previous series.
Mm-hmm.
So, with my chess system, this is what happens. There are levels of role, all right, we call it role-based access control. So, what an admin can see, someone who is, say, a ministry leader cannot see that nor perform certain action.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we need to have in mind is that this management system, for example, has considered that when I'm, let's say, an attendance officer, my responsibility is to only check in attendance. I do
Mm-hmm.
not need access to me making an announcement for the church. So when those things are in there, then it makes things very easy when it comes to managing the data of the members or the possibility of data breaches. Say maybe the account of the, let's say, an, an attendance officer is hacked, all right?
Mm-hmm.
The person will not have access to the entire congregation data. So when those role-based access control are implemented in whatever system that we are using, it makes things easier. That we give uh, only what is needed for someone. Like
Mm-hmm.
we do not give more than they need. You just
Correct.
give them what they need to do whatever task they are asked to do. So, for example, for a preacher, okay, let's say the preacher of the congregation, the person should be able to access all information about the member because it is his
It's a
task
preacher. Yeah,
to.
that's his job. Yeah.
The other also should have access to that and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe when it comes to maybe you be able to delay someone, that right should reserve to the admin or the super admin.
Mm-hmm.
If the other need or the leadership need to remove someone from the congregation because the person is no longer part of them, you contact the admin. So when that happens, it makes things easier. And one thing that we also need to ensure is that when it comes to this digital platform, all right, there are already secret measures implemented, but sometimes due to our ignorance or whatever I'll say, we do not take some measures. For example, on WhatsApp, this two-factor authentication, most people do not do it, and that's the cause of my WhatsApp account being hacked and all those.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, that is it.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone to access your WhatsApp, right? That code that you reveal, that you give out, that's the thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you see, WhatsApp has already mentioned that do not share with anybody when they send you. Do not share with anybody. They will
Mm-hmm.
not. They will never request you to do that. But sometimes I don't know how people become.
They just fall
And
powerful. It's
then you
normal
just give
human
it out,
nature. Yeah.
and then it happens. So secret measures are already implemented in some of these platforms, and regularly we also need to change our password. All right, that's one thing that we also
Emphasize that point again.
yeah,
Emphasize that
like
point again.
what someone can use same password throughout. Maybe
Everything.
yes, because we fear that okay, when I forget, I'll not be able to recover it. But those systems they always have a like password recovery system
Mm-hmm.
implemented in. So when you forget it, you can go back and reset it, and it helps. It helps it to keep secure online. Otherwise, when you use the same password and like for let's say all your social media accounts you are using the same password when when one is hacked automatically it will
Oh, true.
happen to the others that we have. So it will be good for us to put in measures where we try to vary our password. When you use one for Facebook, do not repeat the same thing for others. And
Mhm.
Google has these things in there.
Keep change.
When you are using their password manager, all right,
Mhm.
they can tell you that this password is repeated on this platform. So try changing it. They will flag it for you. So you know that, okay, I'm doing the right thing, I'm not doing the right thing. And possibly reminding you. And I want to say this that most of these platforms, right, they have some password expiration
Mhm.
that maybe for 1 month you need to reset before you get in. So
Mhm.
those are just there to help us keep safe online. We want
Yep.
to use technology and we need to also adapt to how this system are.
Yep. And I appreciate how you you set the stage with this question. Why? Because I've realized that in most of our congregations, things are not standardized, and that's the cause of most of our issues when we that we have concerning technology. And I'm a firm believer in what you're producing in terms of the management software because it provides that standardization of having access to the information that you need. And per what you've described, if I am supposed to be part of the church leadership and I'm the one like overseeing just the entry of stuff, that is just my role. And
Exactly.
then whoever is like taking the data and do whatever they need to do, they do that from that part. And I will highly encourage that and recommend, highly encourage slash recommend that people should reach out to you about the management software because that is the future. That is the future of like church management. That is the future of church, like organizing the church. Because I feel like most of the time when we come to like our church, as you said, like we become ignorant and very like, oh, there's nothing wrong. It's okay. But yet the day will come, or a day will come where we might be experiencing these issues, and then what measures do we have in place to avoid them when these issues do come about? So thank you for that,
All
Tag.
right.
So I have about a few more questions to ask you, and
Okay.
the very first one, I think I might combine both all my questions, and that would help like with our conversation that we're going to have. So you've talked about the COC HIM app. You've talked about evangelism, whether it be in live stream or whatnot, right? How should we go about in like managing everything and handling with caution? Because we've described the impersonation there. You've talked about measures to kind of avoid all these issues. But overall, starting with the COC app, how is the data being managed? And also like with the live stream stuff, how should that also be managed going forward?
Okay. So regarding the COC HIMAP, I just want to state is that the app does not collect any user data, right? If you're on the web, it's like you browsing a website. So no data of yours is taken. But when you are on the Android version, when you store it natively, okay, this is what happens. Your device ID is picked, and let me state why that is done.
Hmm.
And you can read more about it when you go to the COC map website, the privacy page. Now, your device ID is picked for notification purposes only. And this is what it does. When a new release of the app is made, you are notified that okay, go and update to get the new features. That is all. Nothing more, nothing less. That is that is it. So your telephone number, your email, or any other information that you may think of is not taken through the COC HIM app. But when it comes to, let's say, the church management system, we take, I mean, some of your data. When it comes to your email, your name, your location, those things are taken to know who you are. And you get to read about the terms and conditions, all right, before you finally sign up. So it's not like it is hidden somewhere and later on we make, no. Before you finally confirm that you are signing up, you need to agree, all right? You need to check the box that I'm consenting for you to take this data about me. When I finally get into the system, whatever data that I'm submitting for my congregation, it is the person's responsibility to take care of them.
Mhm.
All right. When there's any data breach, you are responsible for that. So we advise through the terms and conditions that you take care of the data of your congregation. It is your responsibility. If there's any data breach, you can reach out, then we can help you resolve that. So for the COC map, no data is taken. Now, let me also touch on the live streaming aspect.
Mhm.
You see, say for example, I visit the congregation and maybe it is their routine to always live stream their service, all right?
Mhm.
Me as a visitor, I cannot tell them no to, all right? But I have I can do something. Maybe I do not want to appear in the live streaming for
Mhm.
whatever reason I have. Then there should be a location for me, or probably a dark room where the camera does not go in there for me to go and sit at that part. So congregation need to have that thing in place. That
Mhm.
if the person enters our place of worship, he or she does not want to be seen in the live streaming, the person's privacy should be respected
Yep.
and be sent to where the camera won't go. So when we put in all those things in place, it helps easy things on ourselves. And as I started with, all right, those documentation should be there. Like it should
Yes.
not be like we are just trying, and those things should be laid down so that
Yes.
when the person says, okay, I do not want to appear in the live streaming, the person is sending there. And I want to also touch on this, all right. You see, though we do not pray for this, all right, but it could happen that maybe a brother who used to pray for the church could backslide,
Mhm.
all right. And whatever the person preached earlier, it is live stream, is online, is on the church platform.
Mhm.
Because there are no policies in place, the person could decide to put this, I mean, law case and all that.
Mhm.
But when there are measures in place, when the person is mounting the stage or the pulpit, there's an agreement the person signed previously that okay, when whatever I'm doing is the property of the church, I do not get to, you can revoke it,
Yep.
like something like that. So if those things are in place, it is easier for the church, like later on. So we just have to take time. Fine, maybe the congregation does not have the people to assist with that, but when you ask for help, you will get
Yep.
it. So let's just have that in mind, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, thanks for hammering on that too. And I appreciate you for explaining that part, because what I've observed is most of the time, right, we just free flow. We're doing things on vibes. Why? Because everyone is doing it, so let's do it. And that's one of the biggest struggles that I have, where I've always been respectful of the whole privacy thing of people. I believe that yes, the information needs to go, right? But at the same time too, it needs to be controlled. But here's a case where what people know is, oh, live stream. Let's just live stream. Nothing is going to happen. Let's just live stream without thinking about these like ramifications that can potentially come about. So I want you to like maybe paint another scenario if possible, aside from like the person backsliding, right? And maybe I can help you with that also, where maybe you're live streaming your Bible class and these hackers pop on. How do you like manage those issues? Because it's live streamed. They can live stream your live stream and they come up, they project whatever they want to project on your screen. How do you control those issues?
I think maybe you should start the account.
Sure, because like for me, right, I've experienced it before. No, like during the COVID era, where we're literally like in Bible class, and then these impersonators come in, they're showing porn and like on the screen. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. And because of that, I've been very mindful of about like the whole live stream thing. Yes, it's cool, but at the same time too, I feel like it loses the value of being able to assembly together.
Yeah.
It makes people to become very lazy. Um, don't get me wrong, like yes, technology is there for us to use, right? But there should be a balance. And if we're going to leverage technology to like evangelize, there should be a strategy behind it and not just doing a live stream just because it's doing live stream. That's the angle that I come from, like whenever I assess these issues. But I don't know what your take is. I find it very absurd when I'm sitting there and these issues are happening and people are like, oh, it's nothing, it's not, it's a problem. It's a problem. If we're going to church and it's a place where it's supposed to be, where it's a place where we're going to worship in truth and in spirit, and here again we're worshiping in truth and in spirit, but because of the medium that we're using, we're seeing all of these terror. We've deviated from the main goal that we're here today. So that's why I appreciate what you said. I feel like we need to keep an eye on that part, especially when it comes to live streaming stuff, because things are happening, and unless it happens to you, you don't know. You don't know. But do you have a pointer on or two to add on to that
Okay.
one?
Yes. I think I want to add something to that. You see, when it comes to the live stream, all right, there are a lot of things that goes in there. And personally, I suggest when the church wants to go live, all right, everybody should be made aware of it. That okay, brethren, we are live, so they know how to go about things. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe there's no need for you to put in kids in the live streaming. You need
Yes.
to respect that, like
Mhm.
the fact that okay, you are behind the camera, like staring, whatever, doesn't mean anywhere you just zoom in and someone may not like it. So the person's privacy, as I mentioned earlier, must be respected.
Mhm.
Now, let me just add this also that you see, when you go for we come for worship, all right,
Mhm.
the focus should be that and nothing more.
Correct.
Sometimes, I mean, I'll say in plain words, some of the brothers or the team who is responsible for this entire live streaming, to some extent, all right, they do not fully participate in the
The
like.
worship.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the reality.
That's the reality. I saw a video the other day. It was like one of the churches, and the man was like, "Oh, yeah, cameraman, it's not sick. It's not sick. It's not sick." Yeah, I was like, "Oh, okay." This is one of the things that I've always been concerned about. Like, you're part of the worship. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, and personally, I believe this that whatever you are doing, all right, you are doing to assist,
Mhm.
but your focus for that moment, you also a worshiper. You must fully participate in the process.
Mhm.
Do not exempt yourself for whatever reason you may have.
Mhm.
Fully participate. And you see, when it comes to this, maybe you are live streaming and a hacker tried to put in some dirty things on the screen. That's possible. You may not have control over some of them, but some also you could have control over it.
Mhm.
If there's a need for you to shut down the stream and pick it up again, why not? So Yeah, we just have to put in those measures. And you see, let's say, for example, someone is tasked to maybe manage the sound system of the congregation. And this is a,
The other issue. I know where
I
you're
mean,
going.
I don't like to cite this, all right. But like the experience was not good in that, uh, I mean, throughout the worship, all right, whoever was responsible for
So,
either, let's say, the sound system, the projection, though most of them, let me say most, all right. If you ask them at the end of the day, what happened, what transpired during the Bible class, during the sermon, like they can't give you any answer. So
mhm,
we just have to be intentional about it that we are there to worship, and that
mhm.
should be the focus.
Yep. And my 2 cents to that is I've realized this trend that when people are doing those like projections and stuff, and it's part of technology. Don't get us wrong. It's part of technology, and it
Oh yeah,
relates to what we're talking about in the broader scheme. The preparation matters.
exactly. Thank you.
Like I'm part of the media team in my church, right? And I've always told the guys that look, get there an hour before. Why? Because I need to be able to test things out with you all and be that confident in that if I'm leading the worship, whatever's happening in the back is good. But does it happen on a regular? No. And I've taken upon myself to like, no, try to get there, set everything up to the best of the best. Because God requires excellence.
Oh
You're
yeah,
not just gonna be going to God and be like, this is my worship and that's it. No, like it's excellence. Like it's excellence that we present before God. So that's
and I think orderliness also comes in here, right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes. So that's the reason why I've always said like I feel like as youth we should now try to challenge ourselves and try to like own it when it comes to these technological stuff that we're implementing in our
yeah,
congregations. Why? Because issues like what we've described can potentially happen, and if we're not prepared or we're not ready to like solve them instantly, we can derail the whole worship. So
yeah,
I still throw a challenge to every youth watching this video that look, whatever you can do to the best of your ability concerning the worship and making sure that everyone is edified at the end of service, you do it to the best of your ability.
yeah.
This is the betterment for the church. I don't like the fact that sometimes when we're like live streaming, sound quality is off. Like then what is the purpose? Like do you understand why you're live streaming? Like do you know the strategy behind it? I hope this video goes out and people kind of like start thinking about it. And if you guys have questions, we're here to like help you guys figure it out, because I've noticed this trend in churches and it's mind blowing. Like why can't we just solve this issue for once?
And I think let me add a little bit to that. You see, regarding the preparation, if you do not prepare very well the previous day or earlier before worship starts, all right, what happens is that you're going to struggle at the beginning, like,
Yes.
and that means the entire thing is messed up. You will not be able to focus again,
Hmm.
and you are likely to distract others because you need to run here, go pick this, do this, and all that. But when you have that pre-knowledge that's okay, this is what I'm going to help the church with, you prepare for it, take it as a responsibility, all right,
Correct.
put in all your know-how. If there's a need for you to call for assistance, call for it, and make sure everything is done orderly. And
Hmm.
that should be one thing that we should have in mind when we are trying to assist the church with any kind of this technology thing, either live streaming, projection, or sound system, or whatever. Yeah.
Hmm. Thank you for that. And that was a good conversation on that topic. And I'm bringing it home back to the management software. I know last time you talked about the attendance tracking and whatnot. And today's conversation is about data privacy.
Yeah.
So, how can attendance data be used as an encouraging way without controlling anybody? Because here is the case where the management software can literally tell you, Evan showed up today, he didn't show up this few weeks and whatnot. And someone might feel like, yo, you are invading my privacy. How do we maneuver around this topic?
Okay, so you see, those data that are kept are there for tracking purposes, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say for the past 4 weeks, I wasn't able to meet with Braden for whatever reason. Probably I traveled or whatever. And let me just state here that uh, the management system that we are talking about has this ability where you can, when let's say I traveled from the congregation, I could be marked that way that I have the traveling status. So I do not partake in the attendance checking process.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not marked as absent for that day because I have the traveling status.
Mm-hmm.
When let's say I uh, I'm transferred or whatever, that should also be indicated in the system that okay, I have the traveling status. Now, when records of previous meeting are taken and are marked absent, it's not that the church is going to maybe you send an alert, an SMS like, okay, Kofi, you be absent for so and so number of meetings. Like the person will feel like you are tracking him
Yeah.
or her. But send message that would, oh, you are trying to find out what might be the cause.
Mm-hmm.
You are doing like from the information you've gathered. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you really understand that the person was absent, but you are sending message to know what could have been the cause for the person not be able to meet with you. If there's a need for you to put in visitation, you do that. But the purpose is not to say intrude into the person's privacy. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the purpose of this like keeping records of the person. It will help you with visitation. So follow up on the person and all those things. So in no way does the system intend to intrude in any person's privacy. I mean, the the whole thing lies on the congregation.
Mm-hmm.
If they mean to do that, but from the original idea, that is not the intention. Is to assist the church to gather data enough to either do a follow up, see who is backsliding. And I need to also state this before we proceed that the system tried to categorize members based on some status, all right?
Mm-hmm.
In that those who are at high risk, that means for quite a while they've not been meeting with brethren, right? You try to group them as such. Those who are, let's say, picking up after visitation has been made and all those things, you try to group them also. And those who are in order, like any kind of meeting, they are there and all that. You also try to group them aside. So if you need to know, okay, this category of people, we need to work on them, you proceed to do that. So data is available to you. As I mentioned earlier, whatever you use it for is up to you as the individual. You have data available.
Mm-hmm.
What you use it for is up to you. Yeah.
Awesome. So preachers, church leaders, it's up to you to utilize the system to lessen your load, because I know it can be stressful managing all these different individuals and their wants and needs. So I highly encourage that you reach out to Tag and his team and learn a little bit about the management software. And most of the issues that we have, or people are not showing up to church and retention issues, through this medium, we can probably get a solution to our concerns. So Tag,
Yeah.
we're going to be wrapping up our conversation for the day.
Okay.
And I want you to give us one privacy principle that churches should take away from today's discussion.
Okay. So from all that we are discussing so far, you're talking about data or information. Okay. What I want to suggest is that do not take more information than you need. And if you are taking information from members, it is your responsibility to safeguard those.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, this one thing that we have to put in mind. You see, they have the members have that kind of confidence, that trust, and they entrusted their data into your care. So you also need to have that responsibility to safeguard it for them. And I just want to end up with this quote from the book of First Corinthians chapter 4, the verse 2, that moreover, it is required in steward that a man be found faithful. So if whatever data that people entrusted into your hands, you are not faithful with it, you are going to lose that trust that you have with them. And I don't think it's something that someone wants to do. And at the end of the day, this is what I'm trying to say. Never collect more data than you are willing and you are equipped to protect. So that is all, or that's one principle that church leaders need to have in mind whenever they are taking data from members. Thank you.
Thank you, Tak. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. All those valuable insights as you continue to share throughout this series is very fantastic, and I hope that we're making use of the information that we received. And as we've discussed, digital tools would offer us amazing opportunities when it comes to our ministry, but yet still it comes with a new responsibility.
Yeah.
So thank you all for joining us today, and please join us for the next and final installment of Technology Series next week, where we will be talking about technology, ethics, and the future of ministry. Until then, next time, see ya. Signing off. Bye-bye.